Hi, Segun, and welcome to Entrepreneurcast. It's such a great pleasure to have you with us today.
Hi, Svietlana. Hope you're well.
So, Segun, before we go into your business side of things, tell us a little bit about who are you outside of your business and what do you enjoy doing?
Okay, so Segun Osu. I'm a father. I'm a husband. I take my son to football roughly two, three times a week, 4 hours each time. So I'm a busy dad. That's the biggest thing that keeps me off the streets, if you want to use that term. I work out a bit. I play hard. I work hard. I work harder than I play. I ride a mountain bike, I snowboard, I do all sorts of crazy things. I travel a lot. I better not go on because I'll take up your 30 minutes.
So, quite an adventurer, I would say.
A bit of an adventurer. I like family, extended family. I'm part of a very big family. My grandfather, for his sins, had 9 wives.
Wow.
Um, so I've got a lot of cousins, a huge family, to put it mildly. And yeah, we're very, very close.
So, tell us about your business. What do you do and what has inspired you to start it?
Okay. So, first of all, maybe a little bit of a background. Okay, so I have been focused on technology since I was 14. I learned how to program in BASIC when I was at school, and I used this to develop all sorts of tricks to do my homework when I was a kid. And I always wanted to build things. I wanted to become an engineer. I became a civil engineer and then worked as a civil engineer for a few years and decided that I wanted to make bigger things happen. So I did an MBA, and that took me into the world of business and strategy. And fortunately, I came back to technology, which is where I'm at right now. So building technology, building products. And my inspiration was, like I said early on, very, very early on in my life when I was a kid and when I learned how to program. And I noticed that technology could help you to do things really quickly, really efficiently, make special things happen, like getting your homework done, simply by putting together a little program. It was a wonderful initial introduction to how technology can help one in business. So, building products is what G2Guide does. We build mobile apps. We help companies who are looking for development teams. We curate the top 3% from around the world. And we as a team provide end-to-end management to make sure that things get delivered on time, within budget, and within the required quality standards. So it's a really simple organization. And I hope that answers the question because I've been rambling on a bit.
Shagun, what would you say your usual day looks like?
Hectic. I mean, today, for example, okay, today's Sunday, but typical day, not very different from today actually, because I've been working today. I went for a run in the morning just to get me started, get the blood pumping, and today is because we're getting very close to the end of the tax year for businesses in the UK. I had to do a bit of paperwork, but generally it starts very, very early. Email, health, and then obviously getting down to business. And it starts. It's the same rhythm every day. I take a day or a day and a half off each week, which is very, very important for any entrepreneur to take time off. But the traditional two plus days I just can't afford because nothing would get done, or it wouldn't get done as quickly as it should get done.
And that's something lots of people who start in entrepreneurship and business do not always realize. Sometimes people think, oh, I'll have my own business and I'll have all this free time. But the reality is, you literally work 24/7 when you have your own business.
I think you can, you shouldn't. Okay. What tends to happen is that you tend to work much more than you think you will.
Mm.
And if you're doing it for the right reasons, you're doing it because you believe in it, you're doing it because it gives you joy, you're doing it because you're passionate about it, you're passionate about changing the world in a small way, then you'll do it with great pleasure. And it's not a burden at all. I'm working, I go to the gym at David Lloyd's, for example, and I meet people there. I work. But it's not all about work, obviously. Like I said, I belong to a very big family, and family is important, friends are important. But being an entrepreneur is not a picnic. It's not a walk in the park. You are responsible for your own destiny. You're responsible for the destiny of your staff. And with great, great, great power comes great, 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 great responsibility.
Mm.
And you cannot begin to understand that responsibility until you've been put in a situation where you need to make payroll and you may not have sufficient funds. Why?
Mm.
Because something hasn't worked, or because you haven't put in the hours, or because your idea didn't come to fruition. So there's a bit of paranoia going on here as well for most entrepreneurs. And sometimes that's what drives you, that fear. And part of the solution, in order to kind of get your life back sometimes, is to take away that fear and to realize that balance is important. It's important in order to get things done. It's important in order to ensure that you are on the right track. And it's important to come up with the right ideas. You need that balance. You need that free time in order to recharge your batteries. So on the one hand, I'm, a bit of a paranoid entrepreneur, like most entrepreneurs. But on the other hand, from time to time, I realize that I need to slow down. I need to bring back balance to my life in order to do those things that will make you successful, that will make you better able to achieve your objective and stay on the right course.
So, Shagun, you know how all of us, when we get into entrepreneurship and in business for many, many years, we have tons of challenges. What would you say was your greatest challenge, and how did you manage to overcome it?
Well, the greatest, I think for me, the greatest challenge was really having a child. Okay, not me physically, but becoming a father. you know Now, how you overcome that is by being a father, by performing the duties and the rituals that fathers have to perform, and bringing up a child. I've only got one son, one child, but yeah, that was my biggest challenge, making that transformation from somebody that had 24/7 dedicated to himself
Mm.
and his business, to somebody that now has to share that time with another human being that you're responsible for, that you've brought into the world, and of course with your family, with your wife, with your extended family as well, and being able to make those decisions and those compromise decisions that will create harmony within the new family unit.
Mm.
So yeah, being a father, big challenge. How do you do it? By being a father, by clinging to all those rituals that make you a good father, being there, arriving on time, making sure that you keep your word, your promise. It's a bit like running a business, actually.
Mm.
Be true, be truthful, do what you say you're going to do, and keep on doing it. And never, ever expect thanks. Just keep on doing it, because you're now the servant leader. You are a true servant leader when you become a father or a mother. You're there to serve, and it's a truly humbling position to be in, but a very, very rewarding position to be in at the same time.
Would you say that since being an entrepreneur and business owner, just having your wife without kids, and
Yeah.
then having this transition into being a father, would you say that that's when it was a breaking point when you realized that you have to take some extra time, to invest in your family rather than business?
That's a really good question, because I think you've hit the nail on the head, actually. Because at that point, you realize that. Okay, let me rewind a little. Okay, do you remember when you were a student? Okay, and you could study all night, and you could get up at any time and do whatever you needed to do. But as long as you got through your exams, as long as you got all of your coursework done, everybody was happy.
Mm.
Your time was your time. So you're absolutely right. You've hit the nail on the head. The turning point was exactly then. When you start to realize that your time is no longer just yours. You've got to take in consideration other people. You've got to plan with other people in mind. You've got to accommodate two, three, four, five different people, because remember, although I've only got one son, he's got a network of friends, and there's a knock-on effect. If if I'm required, and this is the word, if I'm required to pick him up from somewhere, okay, and I'm not there on time, it has a knock-on effect with his friends, and his reputation goes down, and all sorts of weird things begin to happen. That was a bit of a turning point for me.
That's brilliant. Well, I guess at our show, people can learn not only about business, but also how to be a good parent. That's brilliant. Thank you for that. So, what would you say? Obviously, we talked about the challenges, but what was your greatest success?
I think my greatest success was bringing bringing G2Guide to life. Okay, the current business that I'm working on. G2Guide, as I mentioned earlier, is it's all about, well, what we do is we build mobile apps and websites, and the key thing that underpins its structure is the curation of top development teams from around the world. I read a book by a gentleman called Tom Friedman many years ago. The World is Flat. I don't know if you're familiar with it. The World is Flat. And his philosophy is that there are great people wherever you go in the world. Okay, there are brilliant engineers in India, in Bulgaria, in Ukraine, in all sorts of countries. 20 years ago, okay, the brilliant engineers were in the UK and the US,
Mm.
and access to those people was limited. We've got the internet today, and just bringing G2 Guide to life through these teams that we find around the world gives me a lot of pleasure, a lot of joy, and I deem that to be one of my biggest successes, really, because we're able to harness all of that otherwise underutilized energy, potential, and genius, and to use it in a way that otherwise it might not be used, to develop brilliant apps, to develop brilliant websites, and to solve big business problems that might not otherwise be solved.
There are quite a few, obviously, companies out there with everything being so technological. There are plenty of companies who already develop apps.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
so, how did you manage to get so successful when you have such a huge competition?
Okay, first of all, let me um, bring myself down a peg or two. We're not quite there yet. We're getting there. Okay, it's going to be a long road ahead. G2 Guide has been around for just roughly 13 to 14 months, just over a year. Okay, G2 Guide is built on the infrastructure that my previous business, Business Buy Guide, used. Okay, so Business Buy Guide was all about procurement, all about curation, if you want, if you wish. Okay, G2 Guide goes one step further. So in addition to that curation, we provide the end-to-end management, the product management, if you will, that enables the work that is being done to be delivered on time, within the budget, and to the required quality. Why? Because there are language difficulties, there are cultural difficulties, there are also difficulties in motivating some of these geniuses, and that's where we come in, okay, to get things done. So yes, there is a lot of competition out there. There are others who have access to similar teams, okay, but in terms of the difficulties that one might have in running a company like this, because of the experience that we bring to the table, because of the experience that I've had, companies like Gartner, where I was in charge of technology vendor marketing, and at companies like Balfour Beatty, where I was basically a project manager. It's a bit of a walk in the park, really, because I'm passionate about it. I really am passionate about it. And, as I told you earlier on, developing technology and using technology to do things that are functional is part and parcel of my DNA. It doesn't require huge effort. I don't know if that answers the question.
That's definitely very useful because I think, a lot of entrepreneurs, they get into business for money to get out of the current job or whatever it is that they do. And sometimes people think, oh, I'll just start my own thing and make a lot of money, but that doesn't work unless you have passion and desire for it.
Yeah,
If you're super passionate, then you can put all your passion into it, and whenever you have hard days, you can obviously build on your passion, even if it's hard
absolutely.
to get up in the morning, or whether it's a weekend or an evening or night. You know that your passion will drive you, whether then if you're just motivated by the financial part of it, that is not emotional enough to charge you up.
It isn't enough. Money is never enough. You've got to have passion. You've got to believe in what you're doing. You've got to know where you are going as well, because the road is long, it's difficult, and it's full of booby traps. You will stumble. And, as I've kind of hinted, we are on a journey. And, at one point, I had a team of 20. At another point, I had a team of two. And, it comes up, it goes down. Luckily, right now, we're a decent sized team. Things are going smoothly. And, more and more stability is coming as we move forward. But there will be challenges, and there will be more challenges ahead. The economy doesn't help. It will help more as we, I guess, get through this Brexit issue, and some greater stability comes to the economy. We're better able to make decisions, or businesses, I should say, are better able to make much more swift decisions. Okay. But these are the things that try any entrepreneur. This is where entrepreneurs come into their own. Not everybody's cut out to do this. And, we've got to realize that it is not a walk in the park. It's definitely not a walk in the park, but it's fun. It is fun. It is fun. You don't necessarily make tons of money on day one, but if you have that passion, if you have that fire in your belly, and you know which direction you've got to go, and you know that you believe in your goal, and that you've got a product and a service that is wanted out there, that people actively need, then you've got nothing to worry about, really, apart from fear itself, as many a famous politician has said.
Definitely. So, just for fun, I like to ask this question because I think we're all so different. Where would you say you come up with your best ideas?
Ha. It's interesting, because I've been I've been known to come up with ideas while I'm brushing my teeth. um, Incredible, isn't it? Really, you think maybe shaking your head generates ideas, but equally, just maybe before you go to bed, having a pen and paper by your bed sometimes helps, because as you're about to snooze, ideas begin to flow. Surprise, surprise! Just when you're about to sleep, they begin to flow. I mean, it varies. It really does vary. And I think with modern technology, you can capture ideas wherever you are. I love the idea of, I got myself an Alexa recently, and, now I can just say, Alexa, add this idea to my diary or my calendar. It's wonderful, really. So these ideas come to you at any time, any place, and you never know when they're going to hit you. But definitely brushing my teeth, and maybe it's just that process of shaking your head.
I
Brings
really like that. That's the first time I hear that one.
really.
So, yeah. Yeah, I heard a few different things. Before this, I think my favorite was while boiling the kettle. But but I think while brushing your teeth, I actually really like that.
It's incredible, really.
So, Shagun, you know how we usually have people that inspire us? Not everybody, but a lot of us do.
Mhm.
Do you have any personal heroes and people that inspire you?
Ah, I mean, I do. I mean, there are quite a few actually. Um, Let me roll a few out. Okay, so Desmond Tutu. Everybody's heard about Desmond Tutu. Obviously, we've all heard about Mandela, but I would like to focus on Desmond Tutu because he is one of those people that has spread, or is well positioned to help to continue to spread a philosophy that I am slowly but gradually getting into. It's called Ubuntu, okay, and it's the philosophy that says that I am I am who I am because of everybody else around me. And it's a South African philosophy that if you Google Desmond Tutu and Ubuntu, you'll begin to understand a little more about. We'll not elaborate more on it today here because it will take time. So Desmond Tutu for sure. Okay. Barack Obama, he's a great guy. He did a lot for America. Certainly didn't do as much as he could have done because he was held back. In his defense, I'll defend him forever. Who else can I nominate? No, I should stay a little on Barack Obama because Barack has done so much for people around the world, for people who are disadvantaged around the world who can now look up and say, here's somebody like me who was the leader, who was the most powerful leader of the free world. And he's an inspiration. He's an inspiration to so many different people around the world on so many continents. I think I'll leave it at those two.
Okay,
Those two. Obviously, there are many others. Okay, I can roll them out. Richard Branson, Jack Welch from GE. Yeah. Big, big, big inspiration in my life early on, especially after I did my MBA. Richard Branson, before I did my MBA, actually. And they go on. And they go on. Many more.
So we always try to give some really valuable advice to listeners, so
Yeah.
some bits and pieces they could implement. And what would be your top 3 tips and strategies that you could give to the person listening today?
Okay, so you're going to have to work hard, but work smart. You are going to have all sorts of booby-trapped roads ahead of you. But if you look carefully, you will find the path. Do what you're passionate about. Give up sometimes, but be positive and focused in your approach before you give up. Obviously, I think the most important piece of advice is, just be passionate about whatever it is that you want to do, but also recognize that passion alone isn't everything. Whatever you're doing needs to be able to make money. It needs to be able to make more money than you would otherwise be able to earn. Okay, in order to keep, let me use the phrase, to keep the wolf from the door. Okay. Other advice: find yourself a partner. You will need a partner in tough times. And when I say a partner, I mean a life partner, somebody that you can relate to at a personal level, not necessarily a business partner. These are the key ingredients, I think, for successful entrepreneurship. And yeah, that's, I think, part of what might help most entrepreneurs.
Thank you for that. During your journey, did you come to notice or discover any kinds of resources that you could also share with us that could help during the entrepreneurial journey?
Okay, so, if we think about resources in a number of different ways, so you've got resources that might help your professional journey, okay, so productivity tools, etc., okay, and resources that might help your emotional journey because your emotions are an incredibly important part of this equation, okay. So one big resource from a productivity professional perspective obviously is Evernote. I love Evernote. It's an incredible tool. I also love this new tool that I'm playing with called Jira. Now, you might think when you Google Jira that it's only for technology nerds, but actually it's a great tool to bring to life any project. It allows you to plan in a way, and it's not expensive at all. Okay, Evernote, by the way, is free. Jira, you'll have to pay for after 30 days. But they're both tools that will help you in different ways, and they'll help you professionally. So Google Jira, Google Evernote. On the emotional side, okay, things that help: faith, spirituality, just being able to meditate, being able to let off some steam, go for a run, you know, go to the gym, go for a walk, get out there into nature, smell the roses, take a different route to work every day.
Mm.
It opens up the mind in ways that I can't even begin to describe, really. Even before I became a full-time business person or entrepreneur, if you will, when I worked at Gartner, I would drive a different route to work. I would drive a different route. Okay, I could do that because I live in Surrey now. So there are like 5 different routes to the Gartner office. It's great, and it's all green, and there's never, well, hardly ever any traffic. And what does that do? It helps you to notice things. Because if you take the same route every day, you are, I like to use the word zombie. You're like a zombie because you don't notice what's new. You don't need to notice what's new because your brain, in order to utilize as few resources as possible, doesn't need to do all that stuff of noticing what's on the road. You go into autopilot, choose a different route. Autopilot goes off, and you are forced to take notice of the road and what's on it and the things around it. And that's so much more beneficial to your well-being and will help you in business as well.
So a lot of entrepreneurs and business owners, a lot of people I've met, say that at some point in their life they had a book that changed their life.
Oh
Did
dear.
you have such a book?
I've got too many books actually, but yeah, there is one book in particular that did change my life and that, was a kind of turning point for me. And it's not the usual, I've got here, Stephen Covey, all sorts of books, Napoleon Hill, John Kine. Vincent Peale is the one that really, really did it for me. Okay. And his focus on a positive mental attitude really got me going at a time in my life when I was really down, when things were not working. I picked up that I was watching a TV program. I remember I was watching a TV program and somebody mentioned the name and it resonated with me. Why? Because I had bought that book years earlier but never read it. I had bought that book for either 1 pence or £1 from my cousin, Vincent Peale. And it still resonates with me now because his messages, although his messages are probably 30, 40 years old, they don't, these key messages don't change over time. They're as powerful as they were when they were written. And they're motivational. They get you up in the morning. They get you doing things that you might think that you cannot do. And because you've now got this momentum, you can do more things and do more things and more things. So for me, Vince Peale, let's just try and get the title of the book. Here it is. It's always on my bookshelf. It's dogged and battered right now. Okay. But it's called The Power of Positive Thinking. It's a wonderful book. And it's very old. Very, very old. And look at this. Look at that. I bought it from that dude a long time ago. And I think it was 1 pence or £1. He just wanted to get rid of it. But it was my benefit.
Brilliant. Well, I'll definitely leave it in the resources side of things. So you've been in a business for quite a while, and
Yeah.
you've had quite a success for yourself. What would you say is next for you? What's your next goal, aim? What are you aiming to achieve? And if there is someone in the audience who's listening today and could help you in any way, or connect you to somebody, or whatever it is that you can think of, who would be that person who could help you out?
Okay, you've probably during this interview heard me speak about Ubuntu too often. Okay, I'm really getting into it. And one of the things that I would like to do, I'd really, really like to do, is set up some kind of, when I say set up a foundation, that's crazy because I'm not big enough to set up a foundation yet, but plant the seeds for a kind of foundation that will help disadvantaged young people. And when I say disadvantaged young people, what I really mean is disadvantaged but gifted young people who might not otherwise be able to get into the world of technology. Okay, so I've seen how development teams from around the world can do wonderful things. And I've also seen how, okay, young people in less advantaged situations, okay, are denied the kind of digital education that is a requirement for survival in the coming years. Okay, it's a requirement, and this foundation, what it will do is it will be founded on the principles of Ubuntu. Okay, and it will offer young people who want to get into technology, who want to acquire a digital education, sponsorship and encouragement and motivation. So that's something that I'm thinking about. Okay, and if there's anybody out there who can help me on this journey, because obviously it requires a lot of resources, it requires a lot of time and energy, but it needs to start somewhere. And it's starting. I started to think about it at the very, very beginning of the year, and at some point it will become a reality. It will become a reality. There is an Ubuntu education fund already, not started by me, obviously, but started by a gentleman in South Africa, and it's doing great guns. It's making a huge, huge amount of change in South Africa at the moment. And again, Google it. It's called, I think, the Ubuntu Education Fund. But this will be the Ubuntu, let's call it, digital education fund. And it will be focused primarily on helping young, disadvantaged people that really want to acquire a digital education.
I think that's a great aim to go towards.
Very ambitious, but it's got to start somewhere.
Definitely. So we are coming to a wrapping up session, but before we say our goodbyes, is there anything else that you would like to add or advise or share today with us?
Okay. So, again, I think it's just about reiterating the point. You've got to enjoy what you're doing. Okay, you don't have to enjoy it. You have to tolerate it. But if you want to do it for a long time, you've got to enjoy it. Now, if your intention is to build a company and sell it, obviously it's a different dynamic. Okay. But if, like me, well, let me not speak too soon because things happen suddenly. But I truly think that if you're going to do anything that's worth doing, you should do it because you are truly convinced that this is what you do best. You should do it because you are truly convinced that you are going to enjoy it and that you're going to enjoy doing it for a decent period of time before you move on to the next thing, because that's inevitable. You will move on to the next thing sooner or later. So that's my closing message to anybody who's looking to get into business, to become an entrepreneur. And I hope that is helpful to someone out there.
Thank you. So what's the best way to find you? How can we get in touch?
Okay, so I'm on Twitter. Okay, so Segun Osu is my Twitter handle, Segunosu. You can go to our website, G2Guide.com. You can find me on Facebook, again, Segun Osu. It's a fairly unusual name, and all you need to do is Google me, really, Segun Osu, Segunosu, and I'll be the only one there.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for sharing your time and your knowledge with us today. It's been a great pleasure to have you on the call, and I look forward to catching up sometime soon.
The pleasure's been mine, Svietlana. Really, thank you very, very much. I appreciate the time you've taken, and I hope that somebody out there is inspired by our humble, simple message.